This is my favorite tree in Dark Souls 3. Every time I start a new save file, I immediately run over here after killing the first boss, because I know this one tree is gonna change everything about my playthrough. Oh, wait, sorry, I don't mean this tree, I mean that one. This small tree, despite looking quite average in appearance, actually allows you to cheat. If you simply line up here and jump towards the roof, you can then go and collect these 3 homeward bones. This allows you to trade items with the birds, lets you pick up an Estus shard, and if you make your way over to this side and drop down behind the illusory wall, you get my favorite ring in the entire game, the covetous Silver Serpent Ring, granting you 10% more souls from fallen foes. In order to access this area, you would usually need to purchase this key from the Handmaiden, which costs 20,000 souls. But thanks to this wonderful tree, you can do it for free at the very start of your playthrough. And this is only one of many interesting trees in the game. Throughout my exploration of the Dark Souls 3 landscape, I've realized that From Software loves to use trees because of how malleable they are. They can be shaped and scaled in all kinds of different ways to facilitate the level design or even just decorate areas in interesting ways. On top of that, them being living beings means lore can be attached to them. And Dark Souls 3 doesn't shy away from having trees with an interesting backstory. It feels like they really tried to make the most out of the trees in this final game of the series. I guess that's why they called it Dark Souls 3. I came up with that joke, by the way. If we go a little bit closer to the tree we purposefully ignored a second ago, we get a message. A seed of a giant tree is yet to fall, hinting at the fact that this tree could also prove to be useful later on. And it is. Dark Souls 3 has a similar invasion system as most of the other Souls games. In this one, as long as you are embered, you can get invaded, and every time you do get invaded, this tree has a chance to spawn a seed of a tree of giants. This item makes mobs in any area target the invaders. So if there's ever an invader that tries to go and hide into enemy territory, you can pop the seed and gang up on them. Lore-wise, it's a bit unclear why this tree is here. In the Dark Souls 2 video, we learned that turning into trees is part of the natural life cycles of giants. And this giant tree in particular bears resemblance to the giants found in Dark Souls 2. How I understand it is that giants might have their own hollowing process, divided in 3 stages. They have a face during the first stage, like the giants we can see in Dark Souls 1, then a giant hole replaces it, like the ones we see in Dark Souls 2, and finally, they turn into trees. This is just a theory though, and this is no lore video. Don't worry too much, not every area has trees that we'll spend so much time on. Actually, in the Dark Souls 1 video, we were almost able to mention every single type of tree in a reasonable amount of time. Now teleporting 5 years into the future, trees are much more numerous and diverse than they would have ever been able to be back then. This means areas look more realistic, but it also means we can't spend too much time on every single uninteresting tree sitting alone in a corner. Sorry, buddy. The High Wall of Lothric does have something interesting to point out, but it isn't part of the area itself. At any point in the level, but especially after the Vault fight, you can spot various landmarks off in the distance. The Cathedral of the Deep, the Undead Settlement, or even the Archdragon Peak. But if we go down to Farron Keep, for example, with our camera, we can see that most of the canopy here is actually made up of one-sided umbrella-shaped textures that are facing the direction the player is in. And while it makes sense that it is this way to save on resources, it's still quite funny to see from this angle. One more thing, the area is full of these guys, but despite my best effort to find a concrete answer as to what is happening to them, I came up short. There is a recurring theme in the game of roots infesting living beings, and with the hollows around them worshipping them, I'd say it might be something that they wish would happen to them. Their last hope to escape this dying world. Maybe this is the first phase of a multi-step evolution into something greater. The pilgrim butterflies found later in the game also have tree-like features, as well as the angel pilgrims from the Ring City DLC. So it could be that these hollows from the High Wall are hoping to turn into greater creatures by letting this root infestation run through them. This is purely speculation though. If any lore expert watches this, feel free to enlighten me. Also, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. So let's go back to the start of the game with the Undead Settlement. There we're introduced to a somewhat significant tree in the middle of this giant arrows-riddled field. This white tree In order to know more about it, let's figure out where these arrows come from. If we make our way over to the top of this tower, we find this giant, who kindly offers us a white branch and eloquently announces,
I help anytime.
with this branch in your inventory, not only will he not aim at you with his arrows, but you'll be completely immune to their damage should his aim be misguided. Actually, there are two other trees like this one in front of the Cathedral of the Deep, and another in Farron Keep. And your newfound friend will help you in all three locations. The branch he gives you has a unique description. It states, good friend, no hit, while the normal branch says, Lord Dusk's first sorcerer's staff eventually became a seedling, and then 3 white birch saplings. This references Dusk of Oldsil from Dark Souls 1, and could explain the origin of our 3 white trees, and why this giant seems so hellbent on defending them. Progressing further into the area is a boss fight, and while we don't usually mention those in this series, this one is pretty noteworthy as, well, it's a tree. But not just any tree, the curse-rotted Greatwood. This is quite the gimmick fight, as the boss is completely immune to damage unless you hit his little X-Axe. Halfway through the fight, he will break the floor and gain some new moves thanks to his partly birthed hand popping out of his belly. Just hit the eggs again or the hand to finally defeat it. So what's the story behind this monstrosity? Its soul explains that residents of the undead settlement have been sealing away the worst of their curses into a spirit tree, and the curses eventually took over, resulting in this abomination. This makes me wonder if that's not also what they're doing in the beginning of the area, and this is not just another curse-rotted Greatwood waiting to happen. Since the tree also murders them during the fight, you'd think they reconsider the way they deal with curses, but no, apparently that's how the world works. Some of the following areas contain lots of trees, with the Road of Sacrifices and Farron Keep also having enemies using branches as weapons. Also, since we're closer to Farron Keep here, the umbrellas have been replaced with giant mushroom-looking trees to keep the illusion up while still not rendering the detailed trees. If we move past the Crystal Sage and onto the Cathedral of the Deep, we can spot something in the distance I haven't seen in any other area so far. Usually when trees are far away, they are replaced with simpler models and textures. But here, the trees from the undead settlements are actually low poly and untextured, which looks quite silly. At first I thought it was because your vision was obstructed when navigating the level, but it really isn't. Video games often have different models or textures for objects depending on how far the player is from them. This is called level of detail. My guess is that they might have forgotten to put in a texture for this distance's level of detail. Moving on to Farron Keep, an area even more dense in terms of trees, with them obscuring your field of view most of the time. Now I'm not sure what they're feeding their trees in this area, but I don't like the look of any of these. The trees here are numerous and so detailed in fact that if we take the camera up, we can notice something that hasn't been used in any of the other games or areas so far. It turns out that only trees that are present within a certain sphere around the player get rendered at any time while navigating Farron Keep. I'm guessing that's how they were able to make the area so dense and detailed while still keeping the performance. Also, I'm fucking stuck. Can someone come and get me? These are my coordinates. Checking the entrance to the Abyss Watcher's arena, you can see that the trees are used to frame the path forward, and it looks kinda clean. Somehow it doesn't feel fabricated at all, most probably because tree tunnels like these do happen somewhat naturally when traffic is high on a specific road that is surrounded by trees. Before we move on to Earthville, I believe it's only fair to make a detour down by the smoldering lake. This area contains many tree-like pillars that seem to extend far beyond the player's field of view. This site is reminiscent of Dark Souls 1's Ash Lake and Dark Souls 2's Things Betwixt. Now, some theorize that the smoldering lake is the result of Ash Lake colliding with Lost Izalith. And since pots of Lost Izalith can be found beneath the lake, this theory has substance. I think From Software really likes the aesthetic of a vast expanse littered with massive pillars, and so it found its way into all 3 Souls games. Earthville is probably one of the best looking areas in the Dark Souls series, and it's actually quite lively. There are tons of trees in the distance, as well as many of them within the city itself. They're not anything too special though, so let's go to an area we all know and love, Anor Londo. Anor Londo has changed quite a bit since the last time we were here, and now features trees in the playable area itself. Now, some of them are dead, and most of them aren't the most colorful, but I don't think the whole city in general is doing too good, so we can forgive that. Also, I somehow learned that these structures are called flying buttresses. So yeah, you're welcome. A bit further into the game, you can enter a secret area called the Untended Grave. This area heavily resembles the cemetery of Ash and even features the exact same trees. Now, I could make the complaint that this is supposed to be in the past, and so the trees are supposed to be a little bit more youthful, but once again, time is convoluted in the Soul series, so I'm not gonna do that. Instead, I'd like to point out that our cheating tree is still here, and this time it allows you to access a rooftop that you're not supposed to get to at all. The elevator is not accessible in this version of Firing Shrine. Unfortunately, this also means that, well, there's no loot here. But I still love this tree, and I wanted to mention it once more. Sue me. Before we move on to the final area of the game, I think it's a good time to check out the DLCs. I absolutely love Dark Souls 3's DLCs, and they don't disappoint in terms of trees either. In Ashes of Argendelle, you have these scary looking trees right from the beginning, and despite it really looking like they're going to attack you or grab you, they just don't. But don't get a false sense of security, because a little further down the road, these same trees actually move and unleash elemental attacks. As much as I love trees, we're gonna have to get rid of those. After making our way through the village, we have something quite reminiscent of Dark Souls 2. A shortcut tree that you can kick down to make a bridge. There's two of them actually. Strangely, they don't feel too crucial to make the area traversable. But since they feel a bit out of place, I wonder if they deemed the area too difficult in testing and decided to add these two small shortcuts to make it more bearable for players who enter the DLC early, for example. And finally, we have the most anxiety-inducing section of the game with this route platforming segment that has you trying to go down the winding paths while archers snipe you from afar. Interestingly, every Souls game uses either branches or routes as a means of traversal at one point or another. I mentioned it earlier, but you wouldn't be able to make such organic level design with anything else but trees, especially when it comes to verticality. And although I'm quite sad to see my beloved trees used for such an evil section of the game, at least it gives me something to talk about in this video. In the second DLC, we are almost immediately greeted by a massive tree, quite reminiscent of the arch trees present in Dark Souls 1. A small portion of the level actually has you navigating on its branches to finally reach its highest point. After jumping in, you can face one of my favorite bosses of the entire game, and once you defeat it, things might start to feel familiar. These are actually the remnants of Filing Shrine from Dark Souls 1. This and its resemblance to the Great Hollow make me think that the giant tree could be an arch tree, or at least some part of it. As for the Ring City itself, it is probably the place where plants thrive the most, but there are no real noteworthy trees we can take a longer look at. And that's it for the second DLC. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a lot of trees at the end of the world. Remember what we are able to see in the Dark Souls 1 video about the kiln of the first flame being present at the heart of a massive tree stump? Well, it's even more obvious this time around. And the final fight of the game, once more, occurs inside a tree. Yet again, we start with a tree and end with a tree. This video series started as a silly idea, but ended up making me realize how much care is put into designing the levels for these games. Sure, trees are a major part of the lore of Dark Souls, but the games would function just as well without this level of polish on them. And if so much work is put into this aspect of the game, it's easy to imagine that the same amount of effort is put into other areas as well. I'm glad From Software got the recognition they deserve, and can only hope whatever they're working on next will be just as incredible as what we've already been blessed with. I'm not sure yet if I'll make an Elden Ring tree video, as I can't really remember any tree worth mentioning in that game, but I'll still try to take a look and see what I can do. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.